The story starts with Ino, a boy from the basketball team, rushing down the street and running as fast as he can to get to school, determined to be the first to arrive at the school's sports court. He has a plan to squeeze in some extra badminton practice. But it isn't just about that. There is someone, or rather something more, driving his excitement. That someone is Kana, the girl on the basketball team who always arrives early for practice. She is the girl he likes. With nervous excitement, Ino pushes open the door to the school court. Just as he steps inside, he sees Kana working on her elbow passes, but this time she throws the ball with too much force. Before he knows it, the ball hits him right in the face. Kana gasps, looking genuinely worried as she rushes over and kneels in front of him, inspecting the spot where the ball hits. She gently touches his forehead, the part of his face that is turning red from the impact. Ino freezes, feeling his face heat up even more due to the flustered feeling from her touch. Still looking a little guilty, Kana reaches into her pocket and pulls out a small chocolate treat. She offers it to him as an apology, her eyes full of concern. Ino, still stunned, accepts the chocolate, his heart pounding even faster than before. As the school day begins, the sports court buzzes with activity. Students spread across the court engage in various sports from basketball to soccer to badminton. Among them is Ino, who stands off to the side, not fully focused on the action around him. He drifts into a daydream, imagining what it would be like to marry Kano. He pictures waking up every morning and seeing her face beside him, sharing simple moments of happiness. But then harsh reality pulls him back to the present. Another boy, Kyo, observes him from the side. Kyo points out to Ino that he and Kano could never be together because Kano is not just any girl, she's the next basketball ace, a rising star known for both her talent and her charm. She's admired by everyone inside and outside of school. Popular and gifted, she seems worlds apart from him who, despite his love for badminton, hasn't made much of a name for himself. Ino feels the weight of Kyo's words, sinking deeper into self-doubt. However, as the doubt creeps in, he refuses to give up. He believes that if he doesn't try, he can't win. Hearing that from the boy, Kyo then gives him some advice to aim in getting into the second round in the upcoming badminton tournament. Maybe from that, the boy can start earning some recognition from Kano. Suddenly, Hina, a pink-haired girl from his class, appears behind him unexpectedly. She's energetic, always bouncing with excitement and curiosity. In his growing desperation for advice, Ino then asks Hina for advice towards making the girl happy. She excitedly suggests that he needs to be someone who is relaxed and reliable. Besides, having physical beauty like the famous Mars Nguyen would be amazing. Ino feels another shock, realizing just how high the bar seems to be. The next morning, Ino arrives at the school court as early as usual. Surprisingly, he sees Kano sitting in front of the locked school court door, meaning that the security guard hasn't opened the court yet. At first, Ino thinks this might be the perfect chance to strike up a conversation with her. His heart races with excitement at the possibility of finally talking to Kano. But as he gets closer, doubt creeps in and he hesitates. Instead of speaking, he decides to remain quiet, unsure of what to say. Moments later, Kano suddenly sneezes and Ino panics. Instinctively, he takes off his scarf and gives it to her. Besides, he also rummaged through his bag frantically in search of anything else that could help. Kano giggles, finding his clumsy but sincere actions adorable. The sight of her laughing makes Ino even more nervous, resulting in him sneezing too. Kano returns his scarf and helps him to put it back on. For a brief moment, Ino realizes that Kano's hand is really warm. Just then, the security guard finally arrives to unlock the court. As Kano gets up to leave, she surprises Ino by saying his name. His heart skips a beat, shocked that she knows his name. His mind races, trying to figure out how she knows who he is, only to realize that his name is written on the scarf he had just lent her. Embarrassment floods over him, but on the other hand, he is happy to know that the girl he likes knows his name. Later that day, as Ino is dampening a cloth for practice, his mind remains fixed on Kano. He starts to think about the next step, which is asking for her contact information. After finishing his task, Ino notices Kano in deep conversation with the girl's basketball coach. The serious tone of their discussion makes up his curiosity, though he knows it's not his place to interfere. That night, after all the classes are over and everyone is heading home, Ino realizes he left his towel in the gym. He decides to go back to retrieve it. When he arrives, he is surprised to see Kano still there practicing basketball alone. She notices him and invites him to play one-on-one. Though caught off guard, Ino agrees and they begin to play. After a few rounds, Kano compliments Ino's movement skills and the game naturally turns into a conversation. As they talk, Ino brings up Kano's past, specifically the time she missed the nationals. He talks about how she worked even harder after that loss, pushing herself to reach the level she's at now. As he reflects on her perseverance, Ino starts to realize that maybe it was during that time, watching her work so hard, that he began to develop feelings for her. Throughout the time, the security guard arrives again to inform them that it's time to close the school for the night. Both Ino and Kano begin tidying up the court. While reaching for the same ball, their fingers touch and Ino feels a sudden warmth from Kano's hand, and it is much warmer than last time. The next morning, before heading to school, Ino has a brief chat with his mom. During their conversation, he learns something unexpected, in which his mom used to be on the same basketball team as Kano's mom back then. This shared connection amazes Ino, making him feel like he and Kano have more in common than he ever realized. As their conversation comes to an end, his mom mentions something that instantly makes his heart drop for a while, knowing that Kano's family is planning to move abroad. Shocked by the news, Ino's mind races. He can't believe that Kano might leave, especially after all her hard work and dedication toward basketball. Without wasting any time, he runs to school, determined to find her and talk to her. When he finally sees Kano at school, his emotions take over and he starts convincing her not to leave. He can't bear the thought of all her efforts going to waste, especially since she has been training so hard for the Nationals. He pours out his feelings, urging her to stay and continue chasing her basketball dreams. Surprisingly, Kano states that she isn't going abroad, only her family is. Hearing this, Ino feels a wave of relief wash over him. But right after that, embarrassment hits him hard. He had said so many passionate and convincing things, thinking she was leaving too, only to find out that wasn't the case at all. Even though he feels awkward about the whole situation, Kano thanks him for his concern. She appreciates his support and even hopes that someday they can play basketball and badminton together again. On Sunday morning, Ino wakes up still feeling embarrassed about what happened. Because of this, he decides it might be best to avoid seeing her for a while, just until the awkwardness fades. However, as he leaves his room and heads to the kitchen, something completely unexpected happens. Kano is standing in his kitchen. Ino freezes in shock, his mind struggling to process why she's there. Before he can even say a word, both his mom and Kano's mom appear. That's when his mom drops the news stating that Kano will be living in their house starting this spring. When it's time for Kano to move in, Ino's entire family comes out to greet her warmly. They're all very welcoming, but Ino is still struggling to accept this new reality. He already found it hard to talk to her at school, so seeing her every day for the next 2 years feels overwhelming. As he's dealing with his mixed feelings, Kano knocks on his door to let him know it's his turn to use the bath. The first thing Ino notices is that she's still damp from her bath, which fills his mind with all kinds of thoughts. To distract himself, he starts reading his Jump magazine, trying not to think about her. But then Kano leans close to see what he's reading, making it much harder for him to ignore her. She recognizes the Shonen Jump series, mentioning she's a fan but hasn't read the latest issue yet. Ino offers to lend it to her so she can catch up on her favorite manga. He panics a bit as she stares at him, but she smiles, clearly happy to have him there. It's nerve-wracking for her to live in someone else's house, and even though their moms are friends, she's only met Ino's mom a few times. Having Ino around is comforting. Kano wishes him a good night and leaves his room. Ino heads to the bathroom, feeling guilty for his thoughts. He realizes she doesn't seem too bothered by living with a guy, so he decides to try his best to act normal around her. But when he realizes he's about to use the same bathwater as Kano, he completely loses his cool. He worries that if things keep going like this, he won't even make it halfway through November. The next morning, Ino is full of energy and puts everything into his training. Kyo understands why Ino is in such a good mood, but he warns him not to let others know about his new living situation. Ino doesn't see the issues, so Kyo directs his attention to the side of the court where Kano is training, not at her, but at the group of fanboys watching her. Kyo explains that if the other guys find out Kano is living with Ino, he'll become a major target wherever he goes. Despite this, Kyo admits it's pretty lucky that Kano moved in just as he was hoping to get closer to her, ask her out. But Ino no longer plans to ask her out. He knows Kano is staying in Japan to pursue her goal of reaching the basketball nationals, so he doesn't want to take advantage of the situation. Instead, he sets his own goal, to make it to the badminton nationals this year. Kyo thinks this is a big dream for Ino, especially since he's never competed on a national level before. But Ino feels he needs to try so he can be on the same level as Kano. Even if he fails, he wants to see how far he can go. He asks Kyo for another match, but Kyo is exhausted and decides to take a break. While Kyo takes a break, Ino dives back into practice. Hana notices Ino's extra enthusiasm and asks Kyo if something happened. Kyo explains that Ino was aiming to make it to nationals this year. Surprised, Hina asks if Kyo thinks Ino can actually do it. Kyo isn't confident in Ino's chances but knows Ino won't give up easily. Back home, Ino continues his training routine, reviewing footage of his gameplay from earlier. He's so focused that he doesn't notice Kano standing at the door. When he finally does, she asks what he's doing. Ino explains that he had someone record him during practice and is now watching the video to improve. He feels embarrassed about showing it to her, but Kano points out that she always watches him practice at school, so it's no different. Ino is thrilled to learn that she pays attention to him at school, so he shows her the recording. Kano is impressed by how fast he moves on the court, but Ino isn't satisfied with his current performance. He feels he's still too slow to compete with the best and knows he needs to improve if he wants to reach nationals. Realizing he said all this out loud, Ino tries to backtrack, but it's too late. Kano heard him. She keeps asking until he finally admits that he wants to make it to nationals too. Once he says it directly, Kano tells him to wait a minute because she has something to give him. Kano runs to her room and returns with a bracelet for Ino. She made a pair when she first decided to stay in Japan as a symbol of her determination and thought Ino might like one too. She tells him he doesn't have to take it, but Ino is thrilled to receive it. He eagerly tries to put it on, but it's too tight, so Kano helps him so he doesn't cut off circulation. While helping, she expresses her hope that Ino can make it to nationals with her. Afterward, she wishes him a good night and leaves. Inspired by Kano's encouragement, Ino is now more determined to work harder. The next morning at the gym, Ino is busy doing sit-ups when Hina approaches and asks why he's doing so many. He vaguely explains that he's trying to rid himself of impure thoughts. Hina quickly suspects something happened between Ino and the basketball girl he likes, so she starts probing for more details. Ino worries that if Hina finds out Kano lives with him, she'll spread the news around school since she's terrible at keeping secrets. Trying to avoid this, Ino accidentally bumps into Kano, who offers him his wallet, which he forgot at home. Ino panics and interrupts her, not wanting Hina to find out. Kano catches on, smiles, and pretends not to know him, walking away as if he's a stranger. Ino realizes he may have overreacted, so he later tells Kyo about it. Kyo calls him an idiot, explaining that Kano might now think Ino is avoiding her, which could lead to misunderstandings. Just then, a faculty member calls Ino and Kyo over to help move some chairs. By coincidence, Hina and Kano are nearby, so they're also asked to help. Ino sees this as a chance to clear things up with Kano, but when he offers to help her with the chairs, she declines and walks away, treating him like a stranger. Ino realizes she's probably upset with him. Noticing this, Hina decides to play matchmaker. As they all walk across the building, Hina approaches Kano and out of the blue asks if she has a boyfriend. Kano tells Hina that she's currently single. When Hina asks if she wants a boyfriend, Kano says no, she's focused on basketball and doesn't have time for dating. Hina worries that Ino might be upset, but he already knew basketball was Kano's top priority. After they finish moving the chairs, they return to practice. Ino notices Kano takes a hard fall and wants to check on her, but hesitates to keep their connection a secret. Later, during a break, he follows her and asks if she's okay. Kano says she's fine, but admits she thought he wanted them to act like strangers. Ino apologizes for not explaining sooner, saying he didn't want people to start rumors if they found out they lived together. Kano understands, but admits she thought he liked Hina since he only acted that way around her, and Hana was asking about boyfriends. She even considered sleeping in the shed to avoid awkwardness, which Ino finds adorable. With the misunderstanding cleared up, they head back to practice. The badminton coach then announces that the upcoming preliminaries will determine who qualifies for the school team and potentially nationals. To qualify, Ino will need to place first or second in the prefecture, which means he'll have to beat Harry, who placed third last year. He notices that more spectators are showing up, half to watch Kano's basketball and half to see Hina's gymnastics. Hina is ranked 4th nationally and aims to become number 1. After her routine, she jokingly demands Ino pay for watching her so much. He doesn't want Kano to think he likes Hina, so he just returns to practice, which makes Hina feel like he's avoiding her. Later, Ino heads home only for Hina to surprise him. She explains she's in the area because a famous chiropractor opened an office nearby. Ino realizes that if he's not careful, Hina might see Kano going into his house, which could expose their living situation. He quickly tries to come up with a way to prevent that from happening. Ino plans to get Hina in and out of the chiropractor's office before Kano gets home, but it's tough because Hina keeps stopping to look at cute things along the way. When she's distracted by a takoyaki stand, Ino offers to buy some to speed things up. Hina, though tempted, turns him down, saying she can afford to gain weight. As a top gymnast, she needs to keep her body in perfect shape, and it's easier to avoid extra calories and to burn them off later. Ino gives her a weird look, surprised at how disciplined she is. He realizes that, jokes aside, Hina is incredibly talented and dedicated, and he can't help but admire her. Hana appreciates the compliment and adds that she thinks Ino is cool too. After all, he can now talk to a girl he likes instead of just awkwardly staring from across the gym. Ino knows she's teasing him, but Hina sincerely says she'll do anything to help with his love life since they're best friends. Just then, Ino notices Hina staring at someone behind him. Although she tries to stop him from looking, he turns around anyway and sees Kano walking with Haryu. To calm him down, Hina, who also sees them, suggests they're probably just friends, noting that she and Ino are also walking together at the moment. The next day at the school court, Ino is shocked again when he sees Kano and Haryu talking. Hina and Kyo, however, find it normal since Kano and Haryu are popular and happen to be classmates who sit together and were chosen as class reps. Even with these reasons, Ino feels even more pressure. Hina tries to reassure him, reminding him that Kano said she's only focused on basketball. But Ino responds that no one can stop themselves from falling in love, which Hina and Kyo reluctantly agree with. During practice, the coaches discuss the team, mentioning that while Haryu is a top talent, they also have high hopes for Ino to reach the national stage. Later, when Ino is at the corner of the court, a basketball rolls his way with Kano chasing after it. Ino grabs the ball and hands it to her. Kano then asks when Ino will head home as she forgot her house key. Ino replies he'll finish around 7, the same time as Kano. While they're talking, Harry walks over and casually calls Kano Chi, showing their closeness. After practice, Ino rushes home, feeling jealous and full of questions about Kano and Harry's relationship. Once home, he collapses on the floor by the entrance, feeling down and thinking he's no match for Haryu. He wonders if things would be different if he and Kano didn't live so close, as it wouldn't hurt so much to see her with someone else. Soon after, Kano arrives at the front door, surprising Ino. She sits next to him on the steps and mentions that he got home quickly. She saw the other badminton players just heading to the club room when she left. Ino feels strange because when she says badminton players, he immediately thinks of Haryu. He decides to go to his room, but Kano grabs his jacket to stop him. She asks if he ran home to avoid making her wait outside. Ino is caught off guard, thinking she has it all wrong. He was only worried about what to call her. Still, he feels happy knowing Kano pays such close attention to him. Kano then jokes that if that's the reason, it's a nice move. Ino denies it, saying he was just squeezing in some extra training on his way home and now plans to go for another run. As he runs, thoughts swirl in his mind, but he realizes he needs to focus on the upcoming matches. However, he can't shake the feeling of jealousy over Haryu calling Kano Chi. The next morning, after several matches, Kyo points out that Ino keeps winning. Ino downplays it, saying he's only been playing against first-year students and hasn't faced any of the starters yet. They also notice that Haryu is winning all his matches. As they walk, Kyo asks Ino about Kano and Haryu's relationship, but Ino brushes it off, claiming he doesn't care. Kyo suspects Ino's answer shows he's actually bothered. Then they see Kano and Haryu talking with a group of students. Ino overhears Kano wishing Haryu good luck before she leaves with a friend, leaving Haryu with another guy. Harry's friend notes that he's been spending a lot of time with Kano lately. Haryu agrees, explaining that they sit together in class and focus on their sports. Ino, listening from a distance, feels even more stressed when Haryu remarks that it's nice to see a girl like Kano who works so hard. It's time for Ino and Haryu to face off in a badminton match. From the start, Haryu dominates, skillfully blocking Ino's shots and keeping him on the defensive. Spectators quickly notice how Haryu rarely lets anyone take control, and this match is no exception. Watching from the sidelines, Kyo grows increasingly worried for Ino. He knows Haryu is far more experienced, and he can see how difficult it must be for Ino to go up against someone who not only excels at badminton, but is also close to his crush, Kano. The possibility that Kano might like Haryu back only adds to Kyo's concern. He fears that with Haryu in control of the game and perhaps also in Kano's affections, Ino might eventually give up, not just on Kano, but on badminton as well. The match finally ends with a score of 11-4 in Haryu's favor, and Ino looks exhausted. Kyo brings in a bottle of water and remarks that he's surprised Ino doesn't seem more affected by what happened between him and Haryu. Ino takes a drink and after catching his breath, says that he's actually grateful for Kano's support, which has helped motivate him to keep going. However, he quickly clarifies that he's not just playing badminton for Kano, he genuinely enjoys the sport and wants to improve for his own sake as well. Just then, Ino's coach calls him back for another round against Haryu. As Ino bends down to tie his shoelace, he catches sight of the bracelet Kano gave him, which fills him with a renewed sense of determination. He stands up, ready to give it his all. The rematch begins, and this time, Ino seems to be a different player. He's quicker on his feet and more precise with his shots, surprising everyone watching, including Haryu. Ino manages to end the match with a score of 15-21. Even though Ino lost, he managed to impress the crowd and left them buzzing with excitement. As they clean up the court, Kyo can't help but notice his friend's downcast expression. He asks Ino about it, and Ino admits that he's frustrated by how hard he had to fight for each point. He knows that Haryu is a strong opponent, and while he managed to almost win, he feels like all his points scored are barely scraped by. He explains that he wanted to score in a way that felt more solid, and the struggle to secure each point has left him feeling unsatisfied. Unbeknownst to them, Harry overhears the conversation from just outside the court. He seems bothered by something, although he doesn't say what. On his way home, Ino has a lot on his mind. He's aware of how strong Harry is, but refuses to give up. He tells himself to play more aggressively and learn to read his opponent's moves better. Suddenly, Kano calls him from behind and asks him to follow her. They reach a park and Ino pulls out 2 badminton rackets so they can play together. Kano realizes Ino wants more practice and offers to help. Feeling understood, Ino appreciates having someone who gets him. They start playing, but Kano struggles with serving shuttlecock, which makes Ino laugh. As they play, they chat, and Ino admits he's still upset about losing to Haryu. Seeing this, Kano laughs, realizing how much Ino hates losing. She reassures him that everything will be fine, and Ino thanks her, promising to win next time. While taking a break after playing, Kano checks her phone and sees a message from Ino's mom asking when they'll come home. Ino then notices a bag chain labeled "She" on Kano's backpack and assumes it's from Haryu. Kano quickly explains that her classmates gave it to her, and that's just their nickname for her. She suggests they head home together, but Ino turns her down, saying it's a bit embarrassing to walk home with a girl. He adds that he wants to practice his swings a little longer. As Kano heads home, she thinks about what Ino said. The next morning at the school court, Ino is shocked to see his name and Haryu's listed as partners for the Nationals. Suddenly, Haryu shows up and asks Ino to practice, casually hinting that he knows Ino likes Kano. They train together throughout the week. In class, Ino looks exhausted from all the practice. Kyo and Hina sit near him, and Kyo mentions he's surprised that Haryu trains Ino so hard since he doesn't seem like a team player. Hina thinks Haryu is doing it to show Ino that he can't compete, especially for Kano's attention. During badminton practice, Haryu tells Ino that he won't improve if he only goes for easy shots. Later, as Ino limps toward the school gate with a stick, Haryu calls him over. Haryu is with some other second-year students, including Kano. He announces to the group that Ino is his doubles partner for badminton and starts by saying how terrible Ino is, but adds that he believes Ino will improve. Ino is shocked by this, but he's happy when Kano makes eye contact with him and says he's doing great. It feels good for Ino to get recognition from the older students. Then Haryu mentions he got a text from his girlfriend, surprising Ino. Haryu thanks Kano for helping him buy makeup for his girlfriend, which makes Ino realize Haryu has been messing with him all along. Haryu teases Ino, saying, "Looks like it'll be a while before you get a girlfriend." Ino, a bit annoyed, retorts with a jokingly irritated face, "Nobody asked." It has been a month since Kano started staying at Ino's house. Every morning, Ino wakes up and sees Kano's bright face. Before, Ino would wake up after hitting the snooze button on his alarm 5 times, but now he wakes up after just 2. During lunch in the classroom, Kyo notices that Ino is in a good mood, even though his match is tomorrow. Ino explains that he feels fulfilled every day. Ino receives a message from Kano saying she accidentally wore the wrong uniform. Ino decides to return it to her before her class starts. They plan to meet at the AVU room, thinking no one will be there. On the way, Ino runs into Haryu, but quickly avoids him. When he arrives at the AVU room, he finds several students, including Hina, holding a meeting. Hina approaches Ino and asks why he is there. Suddenly, someone surprises Ino from behind, causing him to drop Kano's uniform. When Hina tries to pick it up, Ino quickly stops her by saying he hasn't washed it since last summer and has been wearing it unwashed, which causes Hina to step back. Ino then hurries out of the room. As he walks down the hallway, Ino gets another message from Kano, asking him to meet her on the west side of the roof. He finds Kano sitting beside the entrance door. He hands her the uniform and asks how she got the key to the roof. To his surprise, Kano opens her outer shirt to change in front of him. Kano explains that, as an athlete, she is used to changing clothes anywhere. Ino stands by the door to make sure no one comes up. While she changes, he hears the sound of clothes and tries not to think inappropriate thoughts. After she finishes, Kano asks if Ino is okay, noticing he seems distracted. Ino tells her to leave first and starts to feel sad, realizing that Kano feels comfortable changing in front of him because she doesn't see him as a guy. The scene shifts to the school court where Hina calls out to Ino from above, telling him not to overwork or embarrass himself. Kano tells Hina to focus on herself. Hina then leaves, thinking to herself that she will make sure Kyo films the event. After she leaves, Ino and Haryu continue walking while talking. Haryu asks if something is going on between Ino and Hina, but Ino quickly says nothing is happening. They then start discussing the upcoming match. Haryu believes Ino could reach the top 16, but Ino says he aims to get at least into the top 6 or 4. The scene shifts to Ino's house at night, where Ino and his mother are sitting at the table. Ino's mother is panicking because tomorrow is Ino's match. She keeps moving back and forth, trying to figure out what to prepare for him. Watching her, Ino realizes that he gets his habit of panicking from her. As Ino drinks from a bottle of water, he accidentally spills it on the table, soaking his jacket for the match, which was lying on the table. This makes his mother angry, and they quickly rush to dry the jacket so it can be worn tomorrow. Later, Ino was in bed, feeling nervous about the match. To calm himself, he decides to exercise. Suddenly, Kano comes to talk to him and notices that Ino is wearing his shirt backward. Ino immediately takes off his shirt to fix it, which makes Kano blush. Realizing this, Ino quickly puts his shirt on correctly and apologizes, wondering why Kano is bothered when he changes in front of her, even though she doesn't mind changing in front of him. Kano then compliments Ino's physique and recalls that Harry once mentioned Ino's body was improving. Ino responds by saying that even though his body is getting better, doesn't mean his badminton skills are improving. Kano then asks Ino to come closer and presses a spot on his head called Hako, a pressure point that helps him relax. She tells him there's no use in overtraining the night before the match, reminding him that his hard work will pay off. Ino feels that the pressure point is working and begins to relax. Kano advises Ino to stop overthinking since he will have more chances in the future. After hearing this, Ino walks past Kano and says goodnight, leaving her feeling confused. The next day, the day of the match, Ino feels excited and confident. After playing 3 matches, he thinks the games went well. While signing the match sheet, Harry mentions that Ino still has room for improvement. This makes Ino realize that during a match, Harry had to cover for him several times. Ino then hears someone playing loudly nearby and notices a player named Kishi. After Harry finishes filling out the match sheet, Kishi approaches them and calls out to Harry. At first, Harry ignores him, pretending that Kishi has mistaken him for someone else. But Kishi recognizes him and calls Harry a crook, leaving Ino in disbelief. Harry explains to Ino that he used to play doubles with Kishi. Kishi calls Harry a crook because Harry broke a promise. Harry had promised to give Kano's number to Kishi if Kishi beat him in a match. Ino was shocked to hear this and asks how Kishi knows Kano. Kishi explains that during a school festival, he lost his wallet and Kano found it and returned it to him. Since then, Kishi has wanted Harry to introduce him to Kano, but it never happened. Kishi confidently says that he will beat Harry in today's match. But suddenly, Kishi's doubles partner, Yama, appears and says he isn't feeling well. Soon after, Yama is taken away by an ambulance, which means Kishi can't play with Harry today. Despite this, Kishi doesn't give up and says he will beat Harry next week in a singles match. However, Harry replies that he won't be playing then. Instead, Harry says he will give Kano's number to Kishi if Kishi can beat Ino in the next week's match. Ino is shocked by this challenge. Kishi agrees to the deal and leaves. Harry then warns Ino that Kishi is better than he seems, which annoys Ino. When Ino gets home, he is still annoyed about how Harry volunteered him to play a match with Kishi, especially because if Kishi wins, he will get Kano's number. Ino overhears a conversation between his mother and Kano in the dining room. He stands in front of the door, not wanting to go in because he thinks it might be awkward. He listens as they talk about how proud they are of Ino for winning the competition. His mother mentions that he has been working hard, practicing with his racket more than studying. She also says she will make tonkatsu for him to celebrate his win. Not long after, Kano says she's a bit worried because Ino has been working too hard recently. His mother agrees, saying she doesn't understand why her son's working so hard, especially since he still has next year and the year after. Kano adds that she mentioned this to Ino last night but now regrets it because it might have sounded like she was saying it is okay for him to lose this year. She explains that she was just showing her insecurities, feeling envious of Ino since she only has 1 year left. Ino's mother comments that Kano is a nice girl with a pure heart. Suddenly, Ino enters the dining room and confidently says that he will win the singles match too, leaving both his mother and Kano confused. Ino feels determined not to lose, especially after hearing about Kano's insecurities. Next week during the singles match, Ino and Kishi are playing while Kyo and Harry watch from above. During the match, Kyo asks Harry about the strange stakes for today's game. Harry replies that he won't give Kano's number if she doesn't want to, and he believes Ino will win the match. However, if Ino loses, Harry says he will make things difficult for him. Soon, some girls come to watch the match. The people watching start arguing, saying Ino can't attack because the girls are there. Another person explains that it's part of Ino's strategy as he is slow in repositioning, so he keeps Kishi moving instead. Harry agrees and says Ino has been improving a lot. Not long after, Kyo decides to leave because he has another tournament. Before leaving, he talks to Kano and tells her that today's match involves her number, and it's Harry's idea. He also says that Ino won't get anything for winning, but asks Kano if she will take Ino to the aquarium if he wins, since the school court won't be available tomorrow and there's no practice. Kyo mentions that Ino is motivated in the match because of Kano. He adds that Ino has always been stubborn in his decisions and says that Ino has been doing well lately because he has someone close with the same goals, referring to Kano. In the end, Ino wins the match and Kano agrees to take him to the aquarium as a reward. That marks the end of today's anime recap. If you enjoyed the video and want more of it, please support the channel by leaving a like and subscribe. Let's help us reach a current goal of 10K subscribers.